Did you know that before history had a name, before kings raised banners, before time itself was counted, there was one man who ruled the earth? His name was Alulim, the first king in the chronicles of humanity, the man who turned chaos into civilization. In the deserts of southern Mesopotamia, between the ancient rivers Tigris and Euphrates, a city rose from the marshes. Its name was Eridu, the city of the deep waters, the city of the god Enki, and, according to the oldest records ever found, the first city on earth. It was here, thousands of years before Egypt's pyramids or Babylon's walls, that the Sumerians told of a moment when kingship descended from heaven, and with it came Alulim, not just a ruler, but the very first bridge between gods and men. We know him from a single cryptic source, the Sumerian king list, etched onto clay over 4,000 years ago. It tells of Alulim's reign in Eridu, lasting not decades or centuries, but 28,800 years, a number impossible for any human, but perhaps not impossible for a legend. Was he a man or a god? A myth or a memory of the first great leader in human history? To the people of Sumer, Alulim was both. He was the moment the divine touched the mortal when the heavens chose a man to rule in their image. Under his reign, the world began to change. Before Alulim, there were scattered tribes, families of hunters and fishermen living by the water's edge. But under his rule, they learned to farm, to irrigate, to build. They laid the first bricks of Eridu, crafting temples of mud and reed that gleamed gold in the sunlight. They believed their city sat atop the Abzu, the sacred underground sea, and that Alulim, chosen by Enki, ruled over both land and spirit. In Sumerian myth, kingship was not mere politics. It was divine order made flesh. The king was not just a man with power, he was a cosmic necessity, the one who maintained balance between heaven, earth, and the deep. And Alulim, they said, did it perfectly. He was a shepherd, a builder, a priest king who walked among his people, teaching them to speak to the gods, to honor the rivers, and to remember that life came from the waters. Eridu became the world's first city-state, a glowing beacon in the marshlands. Here, civilization took its first breath, and perhaps for the first time in human history, humanity began to think not only about survival, but about legacy. But every golden age casts a shadow. As generations passed beneath Alulim's endless reign, pride began to grow. The people forgot the humility of the waters and turned their eyes toward the sky. They built higher, worshipped louder, demanded more, and the gods, it is said, began to whisper of balance lost. The ancient texts tell us that Alulim ruled before the Great Flood, a time when divine patience ran thin. The world had grown corrupt, swollen with arrogance, and the gods decided to cleanse it with water. It is the same story we find echoed later in Noah, in Utnapishtim, in every myth of renewal, and always, before the flood, there is a wise king who sees it coming. When the rains fell and the seas rose, Eridu was swallowed by the waters, temples crumbled, fields vanished. But the stories say that Alulim did not flee. He stood at the steps of his temple as the flood rose around him and called out to Enki, the god who had once given him kingship. "Great Lord of the deep," he is said to have cried, "if this is your will, let it be. But let not our wisdom be drowned. Let the memory of man endure." And Enki answered from the storm, "Fear not, my son. From the clay of your city, I will raise new life. Kingship will descend again, and your name will not be forgotten." The flood swept across the earth, Eridu sank into silence, and Alulim, the first king, was gone, but his spirit lived on. When the waters receded, new cities rose from the mud, Kish, Uruk, and in each, the echo of Alulim's gift. The idea that order could emerge from chaos, that law could be shaped by human hands, took root. He had taught the world that civilization itself could be made. And so, long after his city vanished, his name endured, carved into tablets by scribes who themselves ruled the descendants of his world. Alulim became the beginning of history, the first entry in the long, unbroken line of human rule. To historians, he may be a symbol, a mythic memory of the moment our species took its first step into organized life. To poets, he is the king who ruled longer than time. To believers, he is the proof that every throne carries a shadow of the divine. But to all of us, Alulim represents something deeper. The birth of order, the beginning of civilization, the spark that still burns in every city, every law, every dream of progress. Because the story of kingship is not just about who sits upon the throne, it's about humanity's eternal desire to shape chaos into meaning. And in that story, Alulim stands at the dawn, the first name, the first city, the first idea that mankind could build a world of its own. So the next time you gaze upon an ancient ruin or a skyline of steel and glass, remember where it began, in a city called Eridu, when the gods gave kingship to earth, and one man, Alulim, became the world's first king. And perhaps, somewhere beyond time, he still watches from the deep waters of memory, smiling at the civilization he began.